Hello YouTube, this is Dakota from Bowtied Media, and yes, we are back with another installment of These Weeks in EDM. I missed the last 3 weeks, well technically 2 weeks and this last week, so we are doing 3 weeks in one, 86 songs, so this is going to be a long one, buckle in, but yes, just a quick update on life. Yes, I did not do these recently because my wife and I welcomed our baby daughter into the world, so yay! It is so lovely to have the family extended a little bit more, and but yeah, without any further ado, let's hop into the songs. Starting off in the trash category, our one and only for the last 3 weeks is Bassjackers and Timmy Trumpet with My Way. Another disgusting, senseless cover track that takes a classic song and absolutely butchers all that was great about it. This song didn't even have that or need to have that Frank Sinatra sample in it, and regardless, it's still a bad song. And then we're moving into the bad category with Alan Walker and Robin Packalen with Dust. Another Alan Walker dud, but this time it's primarily from the vocals. The beat is pretty much generic Alan Walker, but those vocals from Robin sound really out of place and the lyrics are seemingly nonsensical. Then we got Vikkstar, Sincole, KDH featuring Joe Jury with Another Way. Boring commercial slop that has a linear song structure and one of the most generic drops of this year already. Then we got Deathpact with The Funk. There are a lot of conflicting sounds, beats, and even mixing throughout this track, making the whole thing sound quite, well, literally messy and quite unorganized.
Can you handle that? You know I'm afraid, can you handle that?
Then we got GENESI and MEDUZA featuring AHEE with Freak from the new Freak EP from these two. I don't care too much for this club-focused techno track, as MEDUZA and company literally just jump around to whatever style is popular and make derivative versions of that. We got Kayzo and Nimda with Core, a heavy, abrasive rhythm track that sounds like a million other rhythm songs out there. The vocals, the song structure, the gunshot synths, it's all so generic rhythm, and I just personally don't really like it. Then we got Armin van Buuren and Bon Jovi with Keep the Faith. I really wish I could have loved this track, but the drops absolutely nuked anything great that the song had leading up to it. The drops felt so detached from the rest of the song, and they just didn't sound like modern, high-quality main stage EDM. In fact, it sounds 15 years too late to the party. Then we got OddKidOut and AHEE with WONKY. I mean, sure, I don't really care for this in any capacity. The drops are minimalistic, which is fine, but they're just way too slow and offer next to nothing of substance. Not really sure the point of this track, honestly. And then, heading into the meh category, we've got Riot Ten with Bass Bop. I'll say off the top that I don't think this is that bad. I think this is Riot Ten's probably best track in quite some time, and I'll give it some credit for being unique with the kind of super minimalistic drop, which I guess OddKidOut kind of did right after this Rule of Wonders release. But all that being said, the song really isn't doing anything one way or another, and I'm fairly indifferent on it. Then we got Tiësto and Oscar L with Flex. I don't really think this is a particularly bad song, I just don't really get the tone of the track. These kind of like flexing my cash and status tracks don't really feel like they have a place in the EDM landscape, plus the drops are pretty boring techno. Then we got David Guetta and Sia with Beautiful People. It's a nothing burger of a commercial dance pop track, but it's at least not actively bad or egregiously annoying. Sia saved this thing for sure though. Then we got Oliver Heldens with Let You Go. A fine stutter house track that I can't believe I'm saying this, but needed more sidechaining. As it stands right now, everything is just so muddied together, and the energy from the kick just feels so neutered. Then we've got Martin Jensen, SAVI, and Eliana with Hype Beast. Slap House in 2025 is sadly not the play, and I just don't really resonate with the vocal performance and lyricism here. It's pretty generic and nothing too special. Then we've got Blank and Cadmium featuring Ben Provencal with Above the Water. One of Blank's most generic tracks in years. The song structure is incredibly linear, and the production isn't really anything special. I'm actually quite unimpressed with this from Blank here, and I expected a little bit more for sure. Then we got Lucy with Dead to Me from the Lore of the Fae EP. A fine electropop kind of commercial melodub track that has some of its weakest elements in the vocals. But across this whole EP, I think it's one of the fine ones. Then we got No Taker with Suffer No Fools. Pretty underwhelmed by this No Taker track in a way that I didn't really think I ever have been before from him. The mixing feels a little bit rough, and the kick is way too prominent this time, especially with the fairly standard trap beat all throughout, providing little else of substance. Then we got Zed's Dead's Vertigo from the Return to the Spectrum of Intergalactic Happiness album. Zed's Dead has gone for a more nostalgic and chilled out vibe for this record, and this track in particular is exactly that. In the end though, I just didn't really find that this track in particular was doing much for me, and I thought this was one of the weaker ones on the album. I don't know why this was the kind of release single. Then we got Robbie East with Dahlia from the EP of the same name. A relaxing melodic house track with a simple melody, thought-provoking atmosphere, and simple vocal chants. Then we got Passion Pit and Sophie Tucker with Sleepyhead 2025. A modern take on Passion Pit's, or I should say one of Passion Pit's most iconic tunes, but this time Sophie Tucker joins the fray to establish a more standard dance beat across the whole track. I do think it's not as strong as the original, as the kind of flair of the original just isn't quite the same on this kind of new 2025 version, but I don't mind this new version as much. Then we got Hades with Snuff. This song requires some ramping up, and I think it's just a touch too slow and with little payoff in the end when it comes to the drops. Then we got Jessica Audifred featuring Lexi Pantera with Birthday. Not too exciting of a dubstep track here, and I kind of heard tracks very similar to this one already from Jessica up to this point, and so I don't think it's by any means a bad track, just pretty generic by her standards. Then we got Whipped Cream and Andrea Botez with Erased, a new collab track of techno queens that sounds not that half bad. Nothing crazy or mind-bending, but just a straightforward techno track with a light tone and simple melody. Then we got Tokyo Machine and MDK with Knockout from the new Champo 3 compilation. An intense new Complextro cut with a headbanging finale that will be nuts in any live context. All that being said though, I do feel this track in particular has some rougher mixing and isn't as polished as some of the other Tokyo or MDK tunes as of late, especially the ones on Champo. Then we got Boom Kitty and Temanite with Heave Ho. As the title implies, it's a pirate-themed track with a slew of Pirates of the Caribbean sound design with these big drums and string sections. And it does transform into this big kind of dubstep finale, but maybe just because I don't really love a pirate aesthetic in like just in general in the real world, but I don't really care too much for this track. We got Bose and Have featuring Yentine with Oblivion, a fine drum and bass techno hybrid track. I just kind of struggle with the lack of punch coming from this track in the end. Then we got Habstract with 0200, a more reserved bass house cut from Habstract with a simple melody, sound design, and overall production. It's got some funk flair and even some hints of Knock 2 throughout, but overall I was left looking for a little bit more. Then we got Roy Knox, Sad Boys, and After Heaven featuring Noah Cunane with Say What You Mean. I still don't really care for these melodic kind of mellow dub, rock, punk style tracks that feel 10 years too dated, but I did appreciate the D&B second half, but man, that first half is just so generic, and I thought the vocals overall did detract from the track more than I thought it added. Then we are heading into the good category, and yes, I must say there have been a ton of good tracks that came out the last 3 weeks. So here we go. This is Kashmir featuring Michael Bernard Fitzgerald with Indigo Child. A fine main stage track where the vocals are actually some of my favorite elements, to the point where I actually really started to enjoy this track off of those alone. Then we got Tasha Baxter and Chime with You Can Do It. A nice cut from Tasha with production support from Chime that is a little bit more on the reserved side. This track does have a more kind of pop song structure with distinct vocal verses and drop sections, but nothing too crazy, but still pretty fun. Then we got Resco with One Man Army from the One Man Army EP. A fun D&B tune with some underlining jump-up elements, making it a track that's pretty easy to get into and have fun with. Then we got the John Summit remix of Hypnotize, originally by Enigma and Ellie Goulding. Definitely a more commercial-leaning remix that exists to get the song and the original onto the radio airwaves. It's a decent remix, but nothing too special, but I did enjoy it. Then we got Chill featuring Stars with Crazy. I like the moody feel of this new Speedhouse track. It's got a little bit more grunge to it, as not to feel so samey to all the other Chill tracks, and I kind of just like Speedhouse for a decent amount of time. Then we got More Kismet featuring Yaoundé Boxing Club, which I'm sure I butchered the name of that, with Come to Find. A pretty typical More Kismet track at this point, but I did appreciate the commanding classic 4 on the floor style beat in the back half. It is kind of cool to me to hear that kind of take from More Kismet here, and just kind of tackle a more standard song format, which you don't really get from them a whole ton. Then we got Rebel Scum featuring Nev with Barricade. A pretty typical Rebel Scum track, and that isn't a bad thing in my eyes, and, well, that is kind of just that. I do think Nev had an outstanding vocal feature, though, here, and I think it really elevated the song. Then we've actually got Steve Aoki and Good Times Ahead with Accelerator from the Ultra Music Festival 2025 compilation. Definitely a track that's dominated by Good Times Ahead sound, and honestly, I think that's not such a bad thing. It's a little gimmicky, but it's still kind of fun, and it's definitely a guilty pleasure song for me for sure. Then we got Famous Spear and SpaceYeti with Eco, a collab from 2 emerging artists, and I do really enjoy this kind of mid-tempo dubstep techno hybrid track that keeps a lot of sonic elements that actually remind me a lot of Muzz's The Promised Land album for some reason. Regardless, I do think this is a great track, and you should check out these artists. Then we got Shallow with Overture from the 25 Winter EP. A serene and beautiful little EP opener that's pure melodic house bliss. Then we got YDG and Bella Renee with Loving Me, a decent wonky dubstep tune that takes a lot of beats from Subtronics' sound design. I do vibe with this one a fair amount, even though I didn't really feel like I was doing anything too special. Then we got Just a Gent and Miso with Paradox, a more wonky trap-leaning cut from Just a Gent with less emphasis on the atmospheric sound design that he's typically known for. There is a lot of filter play that either is or kind of mimics sidechaining in a playful way, and I wouldn't say this is one of Just a Gent's stronger tracks, but I still do enjoy it. Then we got Set the Sky featuring Dia Frampton with Love Me, Let Go. A track that really lives and dies by its atmosphere, one that I do think is definitely the best part of the track. I think it's a touch stronger than a kind of more modern melodic dubstep, or mellow dub song, I should say, but I do think that it's Dia's vocals here that really elevate the song again for me. We got Marshmello and Viperactive with In the Cut VIP from the Roots remix. Pretty great remix that takes the track in a completely different direction, going to a smoother production and mix down, which is a nice little take on the original track, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed this one. Then we got Oppadan with Lose My Head, a simple garage kind of bassline tune with a grooving beat and light production elements, making the track feel clean and polished. Nightmare, A$AP Ferg, and Beckon with Torch. Another Nightmare and A$AP Ferg collab that I very much enjoy. It's not the most impressive feat of production or rapping, but the two work together very well and put together a banger in its truest form. Then we got Rack with Sonar from the new Clouds LP. A new ambient record from Rack, and it's this first track, Sonar, that is actually the longest from the whole album by like a whole 2 minutes. And it's a pretty short record, I will say. But yeah, all that being said, it's got a great atmosphere and tone, and I really do enjoy this style of ambient music, especially for Rack. Then we got Convexity, Kiro, and Mike Shift with Night Riders. I didn't love the first minute of this track, but once things really got going and these guys got into the rhythm of their typical sound design, the song goes hard with kind of wonky dubstep and future bass sounds. Then we got Jovi with Diamond Head. Yet another intense, distorted to hell and back, aggressive rhythm cut from underground producer Jovi. And honestly, I'm still a little on the fence about whether or not I deeply enjoy this, but I do appreciate the musicality of it. Then we got Teddy Killers with Feed Your Soul, a more neurofunk leaning dance floor drum and bass tune with a steady beat and solid mixing. Nothing too crazy here from Teddy Killers. Then we got Stonebank and Amel with Giving Up. I will always be a fan of Stonebank and Amel's kind of husband and wife happy hardcore team-up tracks. It's sort of their calling card now. But for someone that was once hailed as a genre variety king, Stonebank has fallen into some old habits rather than exploring new territory. I still think it's a great song, but we've heard this song kind of a couple times now. Then we got Jules featuring Skylar with Movement, a more lighthearted, kind of breathing room kind of trap cut with a strong focus on that big club movement. I do think the final movement is the stronger of the kind of two movements here, as it's just a more fleshed out drop, and I think that could have actually been the first drop and then expanded upon more, but again, I still really like the track. Then we got Control-Alt-Delete with Blackout, the best showing from Don Diablo's newest drum and bass alias so far, with a Eurocentric drum and bass tune with a solid style and tone. Then we got Subtronics and Hedex featuring Era with System Shock. It may only be 2 minutes and 16 seconds long, but I do think this thing packs a punch of genre-bending dubstep, drumstep, and D&B production with Era's now iconic vocal performances. I've seen some dislike for this thing, but honestly, I really vibe with this track. Then we've got Encore with By Myself. Really happy to see some more cross-brand artists within the Monstercat ecosystem itself, as we are now getting a new Conroe alias releasing on Monstercat Silk in specific. The track itself feels right at home within Monstercat Silk ecosystem, and I can really hear the kind of whispers of Conroe's kind of mainline production all throughout. And I think it's a pretty fun track. Then we got Arcando and Pyrrhus with Ultrasound, a fast-paced, no-nonsense dance floor drum and bass track with a nasty final movement. It's got a fairly typical structure, but it's a bop for sure. Then we got Overwork and Black Atlas with To Die For. Overwork's still sticking to what he knows best, and it's definitely working for him and for me, I would say. It's a little more in tune with the kind of modern trends, which I think is fine. Then we've got Rebecca Black with Salvation from the album of the same name. Yes, indeed, that Rebecca Black is here with her sophomore record that feels like an improvement over her first. And while this lead single might not have that more kind of hyperpop leaning elements that the other singles did, it's still a fun one. Then we got Ray Volpe and Vastiv with Get Smacked. This is a headbanger to the extreme. I can literally only picture ravers losing it at the rails to this thing. But seriously though, this is a strong, heavy dubstep kind of tear-out track with great mixing, which is seemingly hard to come by in this subgenre right now. Then we've got HIVEMIND with EXE. For a debut single of a new supergroup, this track does a great job of really showcasing the style and tone that HIVEMIND as a whole will likely be moving forward in producing. That being said, I was expecting maybe a little bit more of a grand entrance that I didn't really think this track necessarily was, but again, I still think the song is great. Then we got Riot with Every Night. The Riot comeback train is still on course. The first track is some great modern Riot drum and bass production with a vocal sample that's maybe a little too prominent, but still nice. And while I didn't mind the speed house kind of switch up in the middle, the return to the classic Riot drum step on the back end was a great closing moment. Then we got Milkblood with Heart on the Ground. Milkblood has kind of been on a tear in 2025 so far, and they continue to pump out these niche-leaning electropop tracks that are actually geared towards EDM fans like me and most likely you. It's glitchy and wonky, but still has a bit of that commercial radio feel to it. Then we got MPH with Hold On. MPH with a more explicitly garage tune here. It's a simple, kind of more smooth track with funky vocal chops and a really neat yet subtle lead synth melody. Then we've got Wink and Peekaboo with Leaving Don't Tell Me from the new Wink 3 EP of sorts, Wink EP. But yeah, this is a neat hybrid trap tune with, again, a kind of neat flute instrumentation of some kind. I really like the style of this track, but didn't really find that it did too much with what it displayed early on. Then we got Oliver's with Pulse, or Pump Up the Speakers. For a main stage rave-centric track, this thing does pretty much exactly what it's meant to do. It's a little short, yeah, and I don't really love that, but this would get any crowd up and moving in a heartbeat. Then we got Wales with Die For You. Wales with an excellent new NCS track that quite frankly sees him in elite form on both the more aggressive bro step and melodic dubstep side of things, even adding in some neat string sections along the way. Then we got Shy Girl and Bambi with Flex from the new Club Shy Room 2 EP. A pretty fantastic hip house tune with some smooth trap elements and some great vocal performances from both sides. Then we got Barely Alive with Don't Stop. Another original and B-side release from Barely Alive, and the original here might be one of their best tracks in the last couple years. It's classic Barely Alive dubstep with their modern vocal chops. Then we've got Syzy with Industry Corporate Freak. Another Syzy banger, and this time it's their own take on a more kind of electro house leaning track that sounds kind of part nostalgic and part futuristic. Then we got Grabbitz with And I Run from the Big Epic Nothing LP. Grabbitz continues his streak of alternative dance stylized tracks with another set of modern Grabbitz cuts on this album. This track in particular has some great vocal work and a memorable guitar solo there. Then we got Pluko with See You Again from the Oxy 2 EP. Pluko feels like he's keeping this kind of modern era of euphoric future bass leaning sound design alive and well, and it's really working for him and me here as the listener. The production is snappy while giving you a sense of ecstasy. Then we got Beast Boy featuring Vampa with Veins. Beast Boy with another more atmospherically focused and lighter track with less emphasis on that heavy distortion and its accompanying low end. It's part nostalgia bait, part funk, part garage, and odd track, and one that sounds really quite unique in only the way that Beast Boy can do it. And we got Fabian Mazur with Bring the Soul. Fabian is on this streak of kind of old school leaning sound design tracks and mixed with this kind of modern trap sound, and I absolutely love it. I don't love how short this track is, but my goodness, this thing packs a nasty punch. We got got Godlands and Banished with Ready to Go. Godlands taking some notes from ISOXO for a hybrid trap kind of club-focused cut that is undoubtedly one of her strongest tracks to date. Love the energy, love the sound design, brilliant song. Then we got Yip Yap with Sweat It Out. I'm in love with this new alias, and in particular, this intense style of underground bass music with a hip-hop edge to it. I'm so excited to hear more as Benny Ola and Dactyl go even further as a duo. Then we've got Jane Remover with Dancing With Your Eyes Closed. The second single from their upcoming record, and my goodness, we already have so much variety within the track itself. From hyperpop to electroclash to digicore, it's a bit all over the map and definitely EDM adjacent, but it's also great, and equally as brilliant as it is sporadic. Then we got Imanu featuring Croy with Hush. Another Imanu banger, and I'm quite frankly impressed that Imanu is able to change up his sound just enough to feel fresh and unique every time, yet similar enough to kind of feel like the rest of his stuff and still sound deeply Imanu at its core. It's a brilliant kind of tightrope that he's dancing on time and time again. Then we've got Ganja White Knight and Eliminate with King Sound from the new Sprouted LP. And this is maybe one of Ganja's best tracks of all time, and I think that's largely in part to Eliminate's production assistance here. The first 2/3 of this track is fairly typical, I guess, Ganja in a good way, but with a smoother mix than the norm. But boy, that final movement is absolute gold. Then we got Dr. P and Flux Pavilion with Wasabi, a more intense, aggressive new single from these two in looking towards their upcoming collab album. And this is actually one of my favorite singles released so far of the bunch. It's a great blend of both their sounds, and I'm actually getting pretty excited for this new record. Then we got Are We Dreaming with Rise Higher. To my knowledge, this is Monster Cat's first, I believe, shadow release ever, as the song is a Monster Cat song, but is completely kind of blacklisted from any marketing or Monster Cat branding other than the kind of logo in the bottom left of the artwork. But regardless, I think this track is simply fantastic. It's a 7.5-minute journey of a song with long winding movements and brilliant intense sound design and quite anthemic-like. Don't really know what happened to the song and why it didn't get an official release, but hey, I like it. Then we got Eptic and Liney with Light Up. Something about Eptic's classic gritty synths just hit hard for me. And it feels like it's been a while since we got that kind of classic, more kind of reserved, but still crushing Eptic track like this. A true return to form, in my opinion. We got No Mana, Cusp, and Birdie Scott with Losing Focus. A fantastic progressive trance cut that's got some incredible mix quality and atmosphere to the whole thing. I really do love No Mana, as he pretty much never misses, this song included. Then we got Bad Computer with Breathe. Bad Computer is on an absolute tear so far this year, and this is yet another groovy, high-energy electro house tune with smooth production and high production quality. It's, yes, a touch shorter at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and I would have loved kind of a third movement to the whole thing, and maybe would have been an all-timer if it would have had that, but man, I do love this brighter sound design from Bad Computer, and I still love this track. Then we got Dr. Ozzy with Marked by Angels. Probably my favorite Ozzy track yet. This thing is nasty in all the right ways and is a continual gut punch of intense production. Yes, again, I definitely wish this would have had a third movement, but hey, I can't be too much of a beggar. Then we got Lady Gaga featuring Gesalfenstein with Killa from the new Mayhem LP. This new dance pop record from Gaga is pretty fun, and this Gesalfenstein feature track is sure to be a hit with the EDM community, as is much of the record, I think, will be. And we are moving into the standout category with LS Dream and Effin with Dizzy Spell from the new LSZ Presents Synergy compilation. What a collab. This is some of the best, most creative wonky dubstep I've heard in quite some time. The mixing is elite, the melodies are infectious, and these two just leave it all out on this newest track. Then we got Puppet and Keepsake with Cursed. Another beautiful collab between these two, now almost a decade after their hit collab, Killing Giants. But this is another brilliant work of electro rock production from Puppet that works so well with Keepsake's now iconic vocal presence. The song has big movements and really does feel like a spiritual successor to Killing Giants. And yeah, I mean, I just love this thing. I don't love the Screamo finale, but man, this track is fantastic. And finally, my favorite track of the last 3 weeks is Fox Stevenson with That Choice. It's impossible for this man to miss. Fox Stevenson's first track of 2025 is one of his best. His signature drum and bass production and vocal inflection here is just the cherry on top of a truly unique and fresh sounding melody. Whew, but that's been this week in EDM. Let me know what you think of any and all of these 80 plus songs. My goodness, we went through a lot. But yeah, I will see you again hopefully soon. But other than that, I'm Dakota from Bowtied Media, and I'll see you guys in another video.